Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your curiosity and turn it into clarity. Today, we're plunging into some pretty murky waters, legendary waters, really, in the Scottish Highlands. You know the name, you definitely know the creature. The Loch Ness Monster. For centuries, honestly, whispers and these dramatic sightings, they've fueled one of the world's most enduring mysteries. Our mission today is to unpack the stories, the science, and maybe some surprising truths hidden beneath the surface of Loch Ness. We'll be looking at eyewitness accounts, cutting-edge deep water scans, and the latest scientific analyses. So, okay, let's get into it. Is Nessie a prehistoric survivor? A giant eel? Or, something else entirely? The legend itself, it apparently dates way back to the 6th century. That makes it one of the most persistent mysteries out there, surely. And its iconic image that really got cemented by those photographs back in the 1930s. Even today, you still get new eyewitness accounts popping up. It keeps the story very much alive. We've seen images recently like from Ross McCauley in 2020, Stephen Chalice in 2019, people describing massive creatures. Some said, up to 12 feet long?
With humps, long necks. It's clear a lot of people really truly believe they saw something.
And what's fascinating there, I think, is the sheer consistency. You have hundreds of eyewitnesses over literally centuries describing, similar things. This leads many to genuinely believe there could be a population of, immense unknown animals living in Loch Ness. But these reports, compelling as they are, they're really just the starting point for digging deeper.
Okay, so for many people, that iconic image is dinosaur-like, a plesiosaur, right? That long-necked marine reptile. And Scotland does have this ancient past, ancient rock layers, fossils. Is there any actual scientific backing for that idea, a survivor?
That's a really common thought and a great question. And yes, sea monsters, plesiosaurs and others, they did live in Scotland's ancient seas, no doubt. But our robotic underwater vehicle, Munin, it gave us a really clear picture of the Loch's bedrock. And the data, it's pretty conclusive. Loch Ness was basically a giant ice cube until about 10,000 years ago. Dinosaurs, including plesiosaurs, they went extinct 66 million years ago. So what Munin found, it just completely rewrites that timeline for any kind of prehistoric survivor. There's simply no way they could have survived in that lake. It was frozen solid long after they died out.
Right, so no prehistoric survivors having a chilly swim. That really throws a wrench in that classic theory, doesn't it? Okay, but what about something else? Like a huge marine mammal. Maybe a whale got lost. Or even a giant freshwater seal. Like those unique Nerpa seals they have in Lake Baikal?
Yeah, that raises the adaptation question. Could a saltwater animal adapt to freshwater? Lake Baikal shows some species can, it's true. But the big hurdle for Loch Ness, for any marine mammal, is breathing. They have to surface for air regularly, which makes them, highly likely to be spotted frequently. Plus, geologists are pretty skeptical that there was ever a swimmable route from the sea after the last ice age melted. So even a freshwater specialist like the Baikal seal probably couldn't have made the journey. It seems unlikely.
Okay. So if the ancient theories are pretty much out and large marine mammals seem improbable, what about those more recent photos and videos you mentioned?
Right. Well, our analysts took a close look. That Stephen Chalice photo from 2019, it seems inauthentic. There were inconsistencies in the wave patterns that didn't quite add up. However, the Ross McCauley video from 2020, the one showing a large object moving, that appears genuine. Something was there. And interestingly, a recent eDNA study, that's environmental DNA, basically genetic traces left in the water, it identified various eel species living in the loch. And the study suggested some could be surprisingly large, though, how large or exactly what species, that remains undefined. So the idea of a giant eel, it's still technically on the table, which is pretty intriguing, actually.
A giant eel.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've looked at the science, the footage, but what about just the experience, seeing something you can't explain? That's where Adrian Shine comes in. He's a naturalist, researched Loch Ness for, over 40 years. He offers some really compelling insights into sightings.
Exactly. And if we connect his work to the bigger picture, it explains a lot. Many of those classic multi-humped monster sightings, they can actually be explained by something called displacement wakes. Think about a motorboat cruising along the Caledonian Canal, which runs through the loch. It creates these powerful ripples, these wakes, and they can travel for miles, holding their shape. When you view them from a low angle, maybe from the shore, they give this powerful illusion of solid humps moving across the water. It's amazing how our brains try to interpret that. Even that tragic crash of John Cobb's speedboat, the Crusader, back in 1952, Munin helped locate the wreckage. It was very likely caused by hitting one of these long-lasting, almost invisible wakes. not a monster.
Wow, okay. That makes a lot of sense visually. But what about those reports of objects seemingly, swimming against the wind? That sounds counterintuitive.
Yeah, that one's fascinating too. And that's likely caused by something called internal waves, or seishes. When the sun heats the surface water, it creates distinct layers, warmer on top, cooler below. Wind can push that top warm layer across the loch. When it hits the end, it sort of bounces back underneath along the boundary with the cooler water. And this underwater current can carry objects like logs or debris back against the surface wind direction. So it creates this powerful illusion of something actively swimming against the wind or current. Again, it highlights how perception can trick us, how we often default to seeing what we might expect or want to see.
So bringing this all together, confronting the legend with the science, what's your biggest takeaway from this deep dive into Loch Ness? We've gone through prehistoric theories, debunked them with geology, looked at eDNA, even the physics of water itself.
Well, I think it's clear that science offers very plausible, often quite mundane, natural explanations for many, maybe even most, sightings, the wakes, the internal waves, maybe large eels. But the legend persists, doesn't it? And that raises a really interesting question, I think. Why are we as humans so universally fascinated by these stories of huge, mysterious creatures lurking just beyond our view?
Yeah, maybe, like Adrian Schein suggested, there will always be a Loch Ness monster as long as we kind of want there to be one. As we leave the shores of Loch Ness today, what new perspective will you carry with you about this enduring mystery?